Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanishalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Ganadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. In this session, we'll be discussing from the 31st verse of the 18th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Esha kim nirbhrata shesha karano milite kshanaha mrisha samadhir ahosvat kim nu syat chatra bandhubihi. The meaning of this verse is, upon returning, he began to contemplate and argue within himself whether the sage had actually been in meditation, with senses concentrated and eyes closed, or whether he had just been feigning trance just to avoid receiving the lower kshatriya. Now here, the reference is made to Parikshit Maharaj. After he was not able to find water while hunting, he became thirsty, he became fatigued, he was hungry, and he could not find any water. He went looking for water. And he came across the ashram of the sage Shamika Rishi. He went inside the ashram of Shamika Rishi, and the sage was sitting in meditation, half-closed eyes, completely in trance. He was in trance. But because Parikshit was very, very thirsty, he searched for water. Inside the ashram, he could not find any water. And he saw the sage sitting, not responding. So, somehow he became very upset. He saw a dead snake. He took it with his bow. Then he just put it around the neck in frustration, not finding water, around the neck of the sage. And he just walked away. So while returning, after doing all this, he began to contemplate and argue within himself. Because he's a very conscientious person. He's a devotee. A devotee always is very careful in his actions. Somehow this happened. It's not expected Parikshit will ever do such a thing, because he is a pure devotee. He's a very, very responsible person, even as a king. But somehow this happened, so he began to contemplate. And he began to think, was the sage actually doing meditation? Or he was just trying to avoid me, and therefore he just, when he realized I am coming, he just closed his eyes and feigned it as if he's in meditation. Feigning means just making a show. Pretending to be in meditation, to avoid receiving me. Because I am a Kshatriya and he is a Brahmana. He is a sage, he is a Rishi. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the king, being a devotee of the Lord, did not approve of his own action, and thus he began to wonder whether the sage is really in a trance or just pretending in order to avoid receiving the king, who was a Kshatriya and therefore lower in rank. This is what king is thinking, Parikshit Maharaj will return. Repentance comes in the mind of a good soul as soon as he commits something wrong. Somehow, if a mistake happens by a devotee, generally devotees don't do mistakes. But in the rarest of rare cases where a devotee makes a mistake, automatically he begins to repent. I shouldn't have done it. After committing the mistake, he repents for it. And Srila Prabhupada quotes two acharyas here, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami do not believe that the king's action was due to his past misdeeds. It's not due to his karma that he's committing this offense against the sage. The arrangement was so made by the Lord just to call the king back home, back to Godhead. This is the analysis of the acharyas, two acharyas, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, the plan was made by the will of the Lord, and by the will of the Lord, the situation of frustration was created. The plan was that for his so-called misdeed, the king could be cursed by an inexperienced Brahmana boy infected by the influence of Kali. And thus the king would leave his hearth and home for good. His connections with Srila Shukadeva Goswami would enable the presentation of the great Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered to be the book incarnation of the Lord. See how Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is analyzing this entire incident. It's a fact that Parikshit Maharaj was the right candidate to make inquiries, and thereby Shukadeva Goswami would speak the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, actually through Parikshit Maharaj to all of us. So the book incarnation, the Srimad Bhagavatam, is called Granthavadana, has become manifest because of the events leading to the king, Parikshit, was ruling perfectly. Everything was going on nicely. But due to this incident, he had to renounce his kingdom and prepare for death. This incident led to the Shamika Rishi's son cursing, that we will hear in the later verses. But in advance, the analysis is being given. Therefore, I am telling you that the son of this Rishi took offense at the king insulting his father, and the son cursed this king to die within 7 days by a snake bite. So when the king came to know about this curse, he said, I deserve it because I insulted a great soul. Just because I was thirsty and I didn't get water, I did a big mistake of insulting him. So he accepted the curse, and he retired from his position as the emperor of the world, handed over charge to his grown-up son, and he went away to a holy place to prepare for death. And what was that preparation? Shukadeva Goswami, who appeared in that place where Parikshit was sitting in order to prepare for his death, Parikshit received Shukadeva Goswami nicely and began to inquire from him, what should I do to prepare for my death? And Shukadeva Goswami recommended that you sit and hear the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And he began to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam, which he had learned from his father, Vyasadeva, who had compiled the Bhagavatam. It is spoken by Shukadeva to Parikshit. And in that way, Bhagavatam came into being. So Prabhupada says, this book incarnation of the Lord gives much fascinating information on the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, like his Rasa Leela with the spiritual covered damsels of Rajabhumi. The special thing about Bhagavatam is that it gives the details of the incarnation of the activities of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the incarnation of Lord as Krishna, and particularly those activities which are very, very, very confidential. That Rasa Leela incident is very confidential. So, Srila Prabhupada says, this specific pastime of the Lord, this Rasa Leela, has a special significance. What is significance? Because anyone who properly learns about this particular pastime of the Lord will certainly be dissuaded from mundane sex desire. See, if you hear properly about this Leela from the right source, then your mundane sex desire is completely destroyed. And such a hearer will be placed on the path of sublime devotional service to the Lord. One becomes established in proper devotional service to Krishna. The pure devotee's mundane frustration is meant to elevate the devotee to a higher transcendental position. Apparently, Parikshit was frustrated, therefore he did this. But actually, it was arranged by the Lord that his devotee becomes an instrument for Bhagavatam to spoke. Now, Prabhupada gives another example. By placing Arjuna and the Pandavas in frustration due to the intrigue of their cousin brothers, the prelude of the Bhagavad of the battle of Kurukshetra was created by the Lord. This was to incarnate the sound representative of the Lord, Bhagavad Gita. See, even Bhagavad Gita, Krishna spoke on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, just about the battle, when the battle was about to begin. Now, that is because Arjuna was put in a position where he had to fight against his own cousins due to the frustration due to the frustration the Pandavas had to undergo due to the harassment of this Duryodhana and Pandava. Unnecessary harassment. So then war became inevitable. They were deprived of their kingdom. But even before fighting the battle, when all peace negotiations failed, Arjuna being a pure devotee, he was considering, should I fight this battle and kill my kinsman simply because we want the kingdom? And as a pure devotee, he is not interested in having a big kingdom. No. So, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to actually address the problem of Arjuna, but that was primarily Krishna only who put Arjuna in that situation. So that Krishna could speak through Arjuna to all of us the Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada says, by placing King Parikshit in an awkward position, the incarnation of Srimad Bhagavatam was created by the will of the Lord. You see? Being distressed by hunger and thirst was only a show because the king endured much even in the womb of his mother. See, the history of Parikshit is, when he was in the womb of his mother, one Brahmastra was released by Ashwatthama to kill that child in the womb. But Parikshit endured that extreme heat of the Brahmastra. And if he could endure so much of extreme condition, a little thirst while hunting, why he couldn't endure? That's the argument. The king's distressed condition was certainly unprecedented. The devotees like Maharaj Parikshit are powerful enough to forbear such distresses by the will of the Lord, and they are never disturbed. The situation in this case was therefore all planned by the Lord. This is the conclusion. So the Acharyas are telling us that Parikshit was not at all at fault. It was an arrangement of the Lord so that Bhagavatam could be spoken by Shukadeva Swami to Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj making the relevant inquiries for such a Bhagavatam is spoken. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.